Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today I thought I would give you a quick update on my tummy tuck surgery recovery. I am 6 months post-op. In May of 2024, I had a tummy tuck with muscle repair. I didn't have any lipo, and lipo is short for liposuction, and it's where they suck fat out of your body. I didn't have liposuction. I didn't have enough fat to lipo. I had actually just lost 70 pounds, so I didn't have any fat around my abdomen area to lipo. So I just simply had the tummy tuck for the purposes of the skin removal. Now I will show you my scar first because it is the thing that people ask me about most often, is what does your scar look like 6 months post-op. So I'll show you my scar, and I really have to try to be decent when I show my scar because it is so low. It's one of the things that my plastic surgeon told me that he would do as we were having our consultations, was that he would place my incision as low as possible, and he did just that. He really hid that incision in the natural creases in my body, so it's really hard. Like, you can look at me and you can kind of see it, but you have to really look at me to see it, you know what I mean? You have to look for it really hard. It is razor thin, and like I said, he placed it really low in the natural creases in my body. I didn't have any complications whatsoever with my incision. I never had any openings. I never had any wounds. I didn't have any type of keloids or anything like that, no leaking from my scar or anything like that. I just really haven't had any issues with it whatsoever. I did have a drain that protruded out of my right hip, and when they took that drain out at 1 week post-op, they slapped the band-aid over it, and that was it. They didn't even bother to stitch it up. They just put a band-aid over it and it healed on its own. Now I will tell you, as far as scar care, I was pretty taped up for the first 4 weeks post-op. So when I came out of surgery, I was, pretty taped up. At the 1 week post-op appointment, my plastic surgeon removed the initial tape, and then he taped my incision again with something else. And that's when he pulled out the drain and put the band-aid over the drain hole. And I was in that tape for another 3 weeks. And so I didn't have to do anything to my scar whatsoever for the first 4 weeks. When I went back for my 4-week post-op appointment, he removed all of that tape, and his instructions to me were to start using a scar fade twice a day. And they sold the scar fade in the office. So I just bought whatever they had in the office, and I was using this scar fade twice per day. I didn't handle my scar a lot. I didn't touch it. I didn't rub on it. When I was in the shower, I just simply let the water and the soap kind of run down over it, but I wasn't really like scrubbing in that area or anything like that. At the 6-week mark, I still had tape residue around my scar, simply because I was so afraid to touch it. I was so afraid to like rub it and create an opening because it was so thin. But at the 6-week mark, what I ended up doing was I took some coconut oil and I rubbed it on my incision, and I used a cotton ball to gently wipe away the tape residue. And I don't know where I saw that. I saw it somewhere on the internet, but I tried it and it worked. And so I didn't have to rub hard. That coconut oil really loosened up the tape residue, and it also kept the area, kind of moist. And then I was just able to take the cotton ball and wipe away the tape residue. But other than that, I just really didn't handle my incision, my scar, very much, other than putting on the scar cream twice a day. And even when I was doing that, I was very mindful about how I went about touching my scar. I did have one stitch, exactly one stitch, that came out, and it was in the area it was actually at the very end of my incision on my right hip, and it was where the incision met the hole that was created by the drain. And it was one stitch, and I could feel it, and it just kind of felt like fishing wire. It was kind of hard, like fishing wire, and I didn't pull it at first. Every now and again I would like rub it, just kind of like wiggle it out. I would rub it, and I would rub it a couple of times a day. On about the 3rd or 4th day, it was poking out enough that I could take my fingernails and pull it out. And when I tell you, it was like short. It was extremely short. It wasn't even a long stitch at that. And so that was the only stitch that I had that came out. It was that one stitch right there at the end of my incision. And again, beyond that, I just haven't had any issues with my scar whatsoever. I had one conversation with my plastic surgeon about my belly button, and I simply said, hey, I want a belly button. And he was like, oh yeah, we'll take your existing belly button and pull it through a new hole. And I was like, all right, cool. That was the only conversation I had with my plastic surgeon about a belly button. I hadn't seen my belly button since childhood. I wasn't really pressed about what it looked like. I just simply wanted one. My belly button looks more round when I'm experiencing less swelling. When I'm a little more flat, I'm not bloated or I'm not swollen or I'm not constipated or I haven't just eaten or exercised, and I'm a little more flat, then my belly button looks a little bit more round. When I'm, I've been active for the day, or I've been working out, or I've ate, or I'm, bloated or constipated, period's about to come on, then my belly button tends to look a little bit more like a slit. And what I will tell you is that I just don't care either way what it looks like. I think I look good either way. So I'm just not pressed about what it looks like. And I'm just very happy with it regardless. I didn't do anything to my belly button as far as like care other than use the same cream that he gave me for my incision, my scar. I used that for my belly button as well, but that's the only thing that I did. I didn't stick marbles in it. I didn't stick belly button plugs in it or anything like that. Again, I just did not care what shape it was. I was just happy to have one. As far as swelling, I do still experience some swelling. It tends to come, as I'm being active for the day. If I'm exercising, and I tend to exercise first thing in the morning, I tend to swell more often in the morning right after exercise. I'll swell when I eat. The swelling goes down significantly as you get further away from the actual procedure. And so every couple of weeks, I could see a major difference in the amount of swelling that I was experiencing around my abdomen. When I started running again, which was at the 6-week post-op mark, I started running again. I started working out again. And I was really, on it with my exercise. I was really on it with my diet. I got flat around my abdomen. So much so that when I went back in for my 3-month post-op appointment, my plastic surgeon was like, you look like you're more at the 6-month mark than the 3-month mark. So I had really gotten flat by that point. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that I was exercising so much and I was, really on it with the clean diet. So I do still experience some swelling. It's not as significant as it was in the beginning, but I feel like at this point, I know what to do to kind of control it. As far as pain, I had a relatively pain-free, complication-free recovery. When I tell you that my tummy tuck recovery was uneventful, it was pretty uneventful, and I really couldn't ask for anything better. And I just haven't had a lot of pain in the time, since I've been released back to all activities. I have experienced probably about the 4-month mark, going into the 5-month mark. I did get the phantom baby kicks back, which I hadn't experienced since like 3 days post-op. And the phantom baby kicks are just that. If you've ever been pregnant and you felt the baby kick, it feels just like that. And it scares you because that's exactly what it feels like. I know I'm not pregnant, but a baby is kicking, but that's kind of what it feels like. Every now and again, I will get this really uncomfortable jolt of pain. Like, what was that? And I think it's probably just my nerves regenerating. It's uncomfortable. It surprises you because it kind of comes out of nowhere. It's not like an ache or something that kind of lingers around. It's just kind of like that. And it's like, oh, okay, I wasn't expecting that, and it'll go on for a couple of minutes and then it goes away. And so other than that, though, I haven't had a lot of pain even in the initial weeks of my recovery, I didn't have a lot of pain. I was off pain meds by day 4, and I probably didn't even need them at that point. I was just taking them because I thought I was supposed to. And I was on a narcotic, and I was just kind of over being on a narcotic and being drugged up constantly. And so I ended up taking Tylenol for a few days after that. And then I was completely off of pain medicine. Like, I just have had relatively little pain when it comes to the tummy tuck recovery, and I'm very thankful for that. Eating, for me, the way that I eat kind of directly correlates at this point to the swelling that I experience. And so I really try to maintain my diet, my cleanish diet, where I'm eating less processed sugar. I'm trying to eat more whole foods, keep it in mind, my protein first, trying to get my water in. But I can tell you, I can really tell a difference when I'm not on that eating plan. When I've strayed away a little too much from that eating plan, I can tell. And it's really funny because before the tummy tuck, when I had all of that loose skin around my abdomen, it would take about a good month for me to realize, like, hey, you need to dial it in. You've gained about 4 or 5 pounds around your midsection. You need to dial this in. Now that loose skin is not there and my stomach, is flat for the most part, I tend to bulge, like in my upper abdomen. I'll tend to bulge out a little bit when I've gotten off my diet, and it only takes a couple of days. It only takes a couple of days for me to realize, oh, you need to dial it in right now. And so it's kind of like a blessing and a curse when it comes to being able to see it, because like I said before, it would take about a month, and I've gotten that far off track for a month before I realized that I need to dial it in. And now because that loose skin and stuff is not there, it's noticeable very quickly. Like, I can wake up and be like, oh my gosh, like what happened? And it's not that anything's broken. It's not that my muscle repair has come undone. It's simply like, hey girl, you need to put down the fork some. You need to get back to what works in terms of eating. In terms of exercise, I did get released to all activities 6 weeks post-op. Now, before that, my plastic surgeon would not let me do anything that looked like exercise. So even things like, walking around the neighborhood, which is something that I wanted to do, he was like, no, go home and sit on the couch. Like, I was able to get up and move around the house. If I needed to go to the grocery store for something, I could get up and, go to the grocery store. But for the most part, if it was anything that looked like exercise, anything that was going to get my heart rate up, he said absolutely not for the first 6 weeks. And I just stuck to whatever it was that he told me to do. So I didn't know exercising whatsoever for the first 6 weeks. And the reason why he didn't want me to do any exercising is he said that getting the heart rate up and having that blood pumping against your that fresh wound, that fresh incision, is not a good thing. And so that was the reason why I couldn't do anything that got my heart rate up for 6 weeks. And so he released me back to all activities after 6 weeks. And after that, I've just been good. I started back with running. It was really a challenge for the first couple of weeks, simply because my backside was heavy. My glutes were so heavy because I hadn't done any exercising for 6 weeks. I had just been simply sitting around. And so I had definitely lost some muscle mass, and I had to regain that. So I really had to push through the first couple of weeks. I say it's painful, but it wasn't like painful to the extent that I was experiencing pain. But it was very hard to, because I was in a place where just a couple of days before my surgery, I ran a half marathon. And now, I'm getting back into the swing of things with running, and I can barely run a mile. I couldn't run that mile because my backside was so heavy. And so I really had to just, focus and be like, I'm going to get back there, because otherwise I would have driven myself crazy. As far as lifting weights, I really just started out with lower weights and kind of worked my way up to the more heavier weights that I was lifting prior to the tummy tuck surgery. Now, one of the things that I could not do right off the bat was the overhead barbell press, where you hold the barbell behind your head and you press up like this. That was one of my favorite moves because it really works the back and the shoulders. And I could not do that right off the bat. Like, I was really tight around my incision area, and it was just extremely uncomfortable for me. Another thing that I couldn't do right off the bat, I couldn't do abdomen exercises, anything that looked like a crunch, anything that looked like a sit-up. I felt like I had a steel rod running down the middle of my abdomen, and that was my muscle repair. And so anything that wanted me to sit up and like curl my back like a crunch or a sit, I couldn't do any of that. But what I did figure out a few weeks later was that I could do standing core work. So if I was standing up and I would do, bends like this, and I could lift my legs and do like this. I could do standing core work, but anything that involved me getting on the floor and my core was an absolute no. And so I just didn't do it. But now that I'm 6 months post-op, I am just really slowly getting back into the groove of regular abdomen exercises. I got on the floor the other day and I did a full body sit up where you have your hands above your head and you sit yourself up and you go all the way up and touch your toes. I did that the other day for the first time and I was like, oh my gosh, I can finally do a sit up again. And so it's taken that long for me to get to that point. And now that I'm there, I'm starting to incorporate ab exercises into my routine more. So I do still have some loose skin. And the reason for that is because I opted out of the fleur de lis procedure. And that is simply where they give you a vertical incision down the middle of your abdomen in addition to the horizontal incision. And the reason why they do that is so that they can pull you this way, so that they can snatch you this way and get you extremely tight. And I didn't really want that. I didn't want the look. I didn't want the vixen look. I didn't want the snatch waist look. I didn't want the vertical incision. And so I had some extensive conversations with my plastic surgeon because, while I didn't want it and I didn't want the look, at the same time, I'm spending a lot of money. And so I need to be sure that I'm going to get a result that I'm going to be happy with. I'm going to get the best result possible for my money. And so we had some extensive conversations about whether or not to do this FDL. It's short for fleur de lis, or FDL for short. And so we had some extensive conversations about doing this. And he was adamant that he was like, I just don't think you need it. He said, you're kind of one of those folks, you're on the fence. You have a natural hourglass shape. If I don't do the FDL, or if I don't do that vertical incision and I just pull you down one way, he said, I just really think you'll be happy with that result. He was like, now I can do the FDL if you want. He's like, I just don't think you're going to be happy and you're going to hate the scar. And so I just, I had to think about it. We had 3 consultations. We talked 3 times about this FDL. And at the end of the day, I just decided to trust his opinion, right? He's done this longer than I have. And I really didn't want the vertical incision. I really didn't want the snatched waist look. I wanted to look very natural. And so I just decided to trust his opinion. And I'm so glad that I did. But now the trade-off of not doing the FDL was that I would still have some loose skin. And he did tell me that. He told me that up front, as we were doing these consultations and talking about it. He was like, now, if I don't do the FDL, you have to know that you will still have some loose skin and you'll have to be okay with that. And if you're not, then you'll want to do the FDL. And so I just decided to take the trade-off, and I am very happy with my results. The loose skin that I do have does not bother me whatsoever. What I have now is much better than what I had before. I still have loose skin in other parts of my body. I have loose skin on my arms, my back, my inner thighs, my glutes. I don't plan to have any additional plastic surgery. The reason why I had the tummy tuck, and I will tell you, it was the sole reason why I had the tummy tuck, and the thing that actually made me go through with it, I felt that the abdomen skin was holding me back in my running. and I want to be a more competitive runner. I want to get faster. I want to get better. I want to compete in some of the long distance road races for age group awards. And I just really felt like that loose skin was holding me back. I was constantly pulling up my tights all the time while I was running. It didn't matter what size I bought. The tights just would not stay up because that loose skin was so squishy and jiggly, and it would move around, and my compression pants were always just falling down. It was starting to get heavy because the more weight that I lost and the more I toned, the looser that skin got, and it was just kind of flapping around all the time. I would do plank exercises, and you can see the loose skin falling out of my compression pants as I'm doing the planking and I'm like, this is ridiculous. As much as I didn't want to have the surgery, I'm glad I had it for the reasons that I had it. And like I said, I just had a complication-free, very uneventful recovery thus far. I love my results. My plastic surgeon has been awesome. And I'm just extremely thankful for not only the financial means to be able to do it, but also that, I really did my research and selected the plastic surgeon that was the best for me. He gave me everything that he promised he would give me. He delivered. He got me the results that I wanted. And I'm just really very thankful for that and just very happy with my results. All right, so if you have any questions for me about my recovery, about my process, things that I learned along the way, leave those questions in the comments. I am more than happy to answer those questions. If you're interested to know who my plastic surgeon is, let me know. I'll give you that information as well. I know that he's booked at least a couple of surgeries simply because I've, talked about how well my process went with them. And so, not an ad, not sponsored. I'm just a very, very happy patient. And so if you want that information, let me know. I'll leave that in the comments as well. All right, so that is it for this video. I will see you in the next one. Take care.